parent-child communication. Okay, so I thought I would just start, sorry, I have to rearrange my screen. I thought I would just start by giving a little bit of information about who I am. So my name's Erin Hurley. I work as a research fellow at Griffith University in the social marketing at Griffith Centre. So as part of my research, I have worked on developing and implementing a parent program aimed at targeting parenting-specific behaviours and attitudes that influence adolescent drinking. So we're looking at communication, rule setting, monitoring, for example, practices such as that. So when creating this program, I guess I worked with parents to understand what they wanted to hear about. We wanted to understand what they wanted in a parent program, while also looking at the evidence base to see currently what practices are, to see what is effective, what is not effective. So I delivered this program to parents in the community, and parent-child communication was one of the key parenting factors that we focused on when delivering this program. So today, I guess I just hope to share some of the insights that I've gained from looking at the evidence base, getting an understanding of, you know, what is it that's working, what is it that's currently happening out there, as well as talking to parents themselves. So talking to parents when we were designing the program, we were getting input from parents to understand what their needs were, as well as talking to parents when I delivered programs and just getting amongst parents themselves and having a chat. So just a little bit of an agenda of how today is going to run. We're going to start off just by having a bit of a look at the importance of parent-child communication. Then following that, we're going to go straight into our 6 strategies. We'll provide a little bit of a summary of those 6 strategies when we're done. And this is not going to go for the full hour. I'm not going to be talking all the time. I'll keep it nice and short for you guys. And at the end, we're going to have plenty of time for question and answers. So like Morgan said, you know, if you have a question that pops up along the way as I'm speaking, just chuck it in the chat box. And then when we get to the end, I'll try and see how many of those I can address. So I thought just before we start, we'd just have a little go at using the chat box. And I just wanted to ask if you have a think about and put your answer in the chat function, what is it that you would actually like to get out of this evening session? So have a think about, you know, what's brought you here this evening? Is there a particular issue that you're having? Is there something that you'd like to gain as a key takeaway? So I'll just give you a quick minute to just have a think about it. And then if you like, just dump it in the chat box. It doesn't have to be long. You can even just put a couple of words down and we'll see what we've got. I've just realized I can't see when I'm sharing my screen, the chat box. Morgan, did you want to read any of them out for me?
Hi, Erin. If you just click on chat, it should open on your second screen. You should be able to see it there.
Yeah, the chat button's not there at all.
No, that's okay. I'll read some out. So I'd love some ideas to communicate effectively with my teens and without everyone getting angry. Also, how to encourage my teenager to be independent, to be able to hug my porcupine daughter, learning how to communicate better with my teen. Sometimes this can be frustrating. My daughter has social anxiety, so looking for additional tools. My communication breakdown in parent-teen relationships, understanding how to talk to my teen when she refuses to talk. How to communicate with a teen who doesn't want to talk. Effectively connect with our 16 and 18-year-old boys, communicate better with my daughter, how to adjust communication with teens when stuck in lockdown. I miss my son. I'd love to get him to talk to me like he used to. There's there's a
Yep,
few more.
that's awesome. I think what I heard in there was some good things. You know, one of the common ones I think that just came up was just how do you get a teenager to talk to you when they don't want to talk to you. So hopefully we'll be able to, you know, cover some of this throughout today's session. And again, you know, at the end, if there's something in particular that I haven't hit, please put it in the chat box and hopefully I'll be able to provide some answers for you. So thank you for sharing that, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't see the chat box. I cannot work out this technology, but I will definitely go back to it at the end and have a look once I stop sharing my screen. Okay, so to start, let's have a look at why parent-child communication is so important. You know, as parents, you're communicating with your teen all the time. You know, from just general communication, day-to-day stuff, you know, how's your day when you're at the dinner table, even just in passing, to more specific communications that you might have, you know, perhaps discipline or rules or talking about sensitive topics, you know, surrounding alcohol and drugs, for example. But not all communication is effective. Some communication is ineffective and some can also actually be destructive. So today what I want to do is focus on how we can have effective conversations and communications with your teen in order to really enhance your relationship and your family relationships. So in general, when you have open and effective communication with your teen, your relationship between yourself and your child is enhanced. So communication builds trust, confidence, it fosters mutual respect, and it can really help to improve your child's self-esteem as well. So on top of that, positive communication can reduce risk-taking behaviours in teens as well. So if you remember, I delivered a program to parents based on, with the ultimate aim of reducing underage drinking. So we looked at communication as part of that program, and that's general communication because first and foremost, you know, it comes from a strong foundation that communication helps to build. So communication helps to foster these positive family relationships. It really improves family bonding. It improves confidence. And these are things which help to counter risk-taking behaviors in your teenagers, such as underage drinking. So general communication is really important just for building these really strong and healthy relationships. And then secondly, topic-specific communications can be preventative as well, if done correctly. So, you know, having specific conversations, for example, around what your expectations are with underage drinking. So while it's important to have conversations specifically about topics such as alcohol to reduce these risks, it's first important to have this solid foundation of effective communication practices to build from. Okay, so parents think, especially in the later teenage years, that other influence such as friends and peer groups perhaps have more of a sway on their teenagers' influences or their behaviours. But this isn't the case. So yes, they are still important. Peer groups, especially as teenagers get older, have a really strong influence on adolescents' behaviors and influencing them, but parents are really important too. So don't just think, you know, well, they're not going to listen to me, or it doesn't matter anymore. You know, what's the point? It just goes in one ear and out the other. You know, it's not always the case. So 80%, this is a study that was done, 80% of teenagers say their parents are their leading influence on their decision to drink or not. So even in the later adolescent years, you as a parent are still really important in influencing your teenagers' behaviors and their attitudes. So while we're just talking about alcohol, I just thought I'd throw in here, you know, I'm going to be talking general communication as well, but we also are going to touch on topic-specific communication to reduce risk behaviors, you know, with a focus on alcohol. I thought I'd just throw these in here just to let you know, this might be some news for some people. There are good news and bad news when it comes to underage drinking at the moment. So the good news is that adolescents are drinking less and they're drinking later. So back in the early 2000s, the average age that teens started drinking was around 14. But today it's in the high 16s that they start drinking, and they're actually drinking a lot less. But then on the other side of the teens that are actually drinking, we have this group that are actually drinking at high risk levels, and they start drinking a lot younger as well. So they're still starting to initiate alcohol at about 14 years of age. They typically drink more than 5 standard drinks in one sitting, and it can go up to even more than 13 standard drinks in a sitting. So yes, we're seeing these, really positive and encouraging trends, but the teens that are drinking are doing it a lot worse than ever. Okay, so before we kick off into our 6 strategies for today, I thought I would throw a poll question out there. So if Morgan wants to kick off our first poll, what is communication? So is it a way to let others know thoughts and feelings? Only speech is considered communications? Skills we learn in adulthood, or none of the above? Oh, look at this. Okay, I kicked it off with an easy quiz question. Okay, so I think we've got, most people have voted now. There you go. So it is a way to let others know thoughts and feelings. So it's not just about speech. And yes, it's something that, even your teens themselves are learning how to communicate off of you. It's modeling as well. So we can cancel that. So communication is a way to let others know your thoughts and feelings. So it's both verbal and non-verbal cues, which takes us to our first tip. It is really important to have a quality conversations. So the quality of a conversation comes down to many factors. And some of these are quite obvious, and you might look at them and be like, okay, yeah, but I think sometimes you need to take a step back and think, okay, wait, is this actually how I am communicating the most of the time? So it's about talking with your teen rather than at them. So not being lectured. I know this was a favorite of my father's. When I would do something wrong, I'd sit down and be like, here it comes, the big lecture. I wouldn't say anything. I would just sit there waiting for the time when he'd be like, okay, that's it, you can leave now. Not taking anything in, just wishing it was over. And he's still known for it, sits down and has the big lectures. That's not what quality communication is about. You should be having two-way communication. So you should be listening as much as you're talking. So asking your teen, well, how do you feel about that? What do you feel about that? What do you think about that? And I know, sometimes you're going to get, or a lot of the times you're going to get, I don't know. And that's the problem right there, the barrier. But we're going to talk about that a bit later, of what we can try and do to kind of, even just get that level of communication happening when they're just cut off and not saying anything. But try as much as you can to make sure you're having these two-way communications and you're not doing all the talking, so that you're equal participants. So it's also about active listening. So this is non-verbal cues, making eye contact, nodding to show that you're listening, as well as verbal cues. So just to show that you're listening, asking questions or paraphrasing. So just repeating what they said, oh, so you were playing soccer at lunchtime with Ben, were you? Just repeating what it is that they're saying in a sentence. And importantly, it's not what you say, but how you say it. So really important to consider your tone. This is something that I actually say to my daughter all the time. I just ask a simple question and she will answer me, but then it's not what she says, it's how she says it in a snappy back response. So it goes both ways. You know, sometimes she'll be snappy to me when she says something or asks for something, and my reaction might be just to snap back, but I have to stop and think, okay, no, try and avoid the sarcasm, the snappiness, or the anger. You know, think about how it is that you're actually saying something to your teen. So there was a study, I thought this was interesting and I would put this in. They examined 42 papers on parent-child communication that was alcohol specific to try and understand what the important elements were in parent-child communication. And what they found were frequent alcohol specific conversations were associated with an increased rate of drinking. But high quality conversations were associated with lower rates of drinking and actually a greater self-efficacy or a greater capacity to be able to refuse alcohol when presented to them. So frequent conversations were only protective if they were high quality. So it's not just about always talking or reminding or bringing it up. You need to make sure that these conversations are high quality conversations, which goes back to the things we were just talking about. And really important with high quality conversations is having that family bonding and that connectedness, which is built through having an already established level of communication. So, you know, before you start, what I said before you start having these, you know, alcohol specific or these more sensitive topic conversations, it's really important that you've laid the foundation work down and you have got some level of openness and connectedness already there. Okay, so number 2, communicate boundaries and expectations. So sitting down and creating family rules together with your teen is actually a great way to open up lines of communication. So coming up with what your expectations are of your teen, what your teen can expect of you, and then consequences for these if these expectations are broken. So by sitting down and actually coming up with these rules and boundaries and expectations together, it creates a sense of ownership and accountability for your teen. You know, it's showing that you respect their opinion. So you're not a dictator. You're not telling them how it should be. You're getting their opinion and you're negotiating, essentially. You're negotiating your expectations. So it also allows you to set clear consequences. So then there's no surprises later on, you know, especially when you get angry. If your teen might do something, you might be inclined to just snap down a punishment, which may in hindsight be a bit harsh. Your teen may think it's unfair. So if something is down and you know, well, that's what the punishment is going to be, it just makes sure there's no surprises later on. And importantly, when you're communicating these boundaries and expectation, I mean, it clearly lets your teen know where you stand. So it's really, and this is really important specifically with alcohol as well, don't just assume that your teen knows how you feel. Make it clear. So sitting down and actually creating these guidelines, these boundaries, you know, don't even have to call them rules, a family agreement really makes it clear to your teen what your position is. So it makes it clear, you know, you're not allowed to drink until you're 18. You know, I don't approve of you drinking until you're 18. It makes it very clear where you stand. So some common areas where you can sit down and create these ground rules together, you know, and it depends on the age of your teen as well here, but things like around alcohol and drugs, perhaps technology use, social media. You know, for example, with social media, you could sit down and have, okay, well, what are your expectations about when they can use it or how often they could be on it or how often they could be on their mobile phone, for example, you know, what accounts they can have, perhaps expectations of the parent. So perhaps, you know, depending on the age of your teen, there could be expectations that you're going to monitor what they're doing on social media or their technology use. This is something that you can sit down and negotiate with them, have a conversation about it, hear their point of view, explain why you have certain expectations. You know, you don't just sit down and say, I don't want you to drink or you're not allowed to drink. you can sit down and say, you know, I really don't want you to drink, and it's because, you know, have concerns for your health, or that the damage that alcohol does to a teenage brain. So making it clear why you have certain expectations. And then finally, you can set clear consequences. You know, ask them what they think is fair. Obviously, it's a negotiation, and they're not just going to sit down and tell you, well, this is what I want. It could be ridiculous, but you're sitting there and you're negotiating it with them. You're hearing them out. So, you know, setting consequences is something that's going to be different for every teen. You know, you might take someone's PlayStation away, and your other, you know, if you've got multiple teenage kids, the other one might not care. It might be more about Instagram. So it totally comes down to the teenager, to what the appropriate consequence might be for them. And again, you know, not all teens are going to appreciate sitting down, having rules talked about. You have to approach it depending on your child's personality, the type of family relationship you have. You know, some teens might really appreciate, hey, you know what, we've got it here, let's write them down, let's sign it, let's put it somewhere. Other people, it might be more of an informal conversation that you just sit down and you start working these out. Okay, so on to number 3, be available. So this is about providing opportunities for your teen to talk to you. And I think this is a really good one for people who are having problems. You know, when you do ask your teen something and they just shut down, or they don't answer, or they think, you know, that you're prying. So these times are not specifically about sitting down and chatting. They're about making sure that you're providing your teen with opportunities to talk to you if they do have something on their mind, or if they do have something that they want to open up about. So these, my screen clicked. So these opportunities provide times to listen, as opposed to asking questions, or like I said, or what teens may see it as prying. So if you're curious about what's going on in your teen's life, sometimes asking direct questions is not as effective as just sitting back and listening. So teens are more likely to be open with their parents if they actually don't feel pressured to share information. You know, an example of this, and one that I'm sure everyone here would be very familiar with, is I have a daughter. She's not in the teenage years yet. She's 12, so I haven't reached that yet. But when I pick her up from school, you know, I even do the tricks where I'm asking her open-ended questions, so she doesn't have just yes or no responses, like, oh, what did you learn today? Or what did you do with your friends at lunchtime? And no matter what, I get the, I don't know, oh, nothing, oh, I can't remember. I just get those, you know, dead-end responses. But when we are, and there's a few key actual activities that have found. When we're cooking dinner, sometimes we'll cook dinner together. Long car trips, so like visiting my mother at Bribie Island, it's about an hour there, those times like that, and playing board games. Without me saying anything, without asking any questions, no prompts or prying, she'll just start opening up. You know, it may take a while, that's why it needs to be the longer car trip, but all of a sudden she'll just start sharing all the gossip between her and her friends. You know, someone's doing this and this, and she'll just go on and on. So it's times like these that really just give your teen the opportunity, you know, even if it's just something little, even if they're just sharing something small in their life, this is them opening up. So you take that and you work with that. And sometimes you don't even need to say anything back. You're just sitting there and you're listening. So I thought I would just do another one here. You know, what are some activities that you do with your teen that provide these listening opportunities? So if you just want to put some in the chat box. Again, I can't see this, so perhaps Morgan, if you want to read some out again.
Sure, and we've got.
Oh wait, I found it. I got it. Woo.
Oh, wonderful.
I got it. It was the little 3 dots that I had to click on. Okay, so here we go. I can see this now. Yeah, walking the dog on the beach, playing board games. Yeah, board games is a big one. I have a drive. Yep. Sharing a milkshake on the way home from school when I have to drive instead of catching the bus. Lovely. getting them to sleep at bedtime. Yeah, my daughter really appreciates that too. Like just having some, we do that, you know, what was the, this is actually starting conversation though, but what is the thorn of your day, the rose of your day, and the banana peel of your day? I don't know who's heard of this, but it's where you share something. It's about getting feelings out actually. So where you share something that made you feel good, which is your rose, something that made you feel, you know, not so good, whether it's angry or sad, was the thorn, and the banana peel was something funny. Trying a new restaurant, doing an activity such as tennis. Yeah, so we've got some great ones there. So I've put, you know, sharing meals. We had all these in here, giving them lifts, doing the dishes, going for walks, watching TV. And what they start to do is just even create this unspoken kind of talking ritual. So, you know, it's not like you specifically say, oh, we're setting this time aside so that we can chat. It's just this little talking ritual that's unspoken. You know, whether it's, my friend was talking about this, and, you know, they go to sports games. Her eldest daughter plays basketball, her younger daughter comes with her, and during that basketball game, she loves it because she knows her daughter's just going to open up in their chat. There's no pressure. She doesn't ask for anything. It just happens. Okay, so number 4, show trust and respect. So teens want to be taken seriously, especially by their parents. So look for ways to show that you trust your teen. So this is also really important in building their confidence as well. So some ways we can do that, you know, give them praise. There's obvious times when they do well at sports, you know, when they do well at school, but think about, you know, give praise where praise is due. You know, is there something that they've been trying really hard at that they finally have accomplished? Yeah, have a think about other things. Obviously, you don't just need to be dishing out praise all the time, but, you know, when it's due, give them praise. Ask their opinion, you know, let them make decisions from something as little as what do you want to do on the weekend, or what do you want for dinner, to when you're sitting down and you're watching the news, asking them about perhaps one of the topics that you see on the news. Oh, what do you think about this? Have you heard about this? What's your opinion? Take an interest in their life. So, you know, ask about their friends. And when you ask about their friends, it's really important that you try and remember. I struggle with this with my daughter because there's always all these different names coming out, and then next time she starts talking and I have to be like, wait, whoa, okay, who's doing what? Let's try and recap. But try and remember when they've told you, so that next time if they're talking about their friends, you can be like, oh yeah, Sarah, the one who did this or this or this. You know, and if there's something that's interesting in their life that perhaps you're not even interested in, you know, you can still make an effort, perhaps as a sports team that they're really excited about, you know, or a game that they're playing. Maybe if you start asking about it when, you know, they're watching the sport game or playing the video game, it might be quite annoying for them. But this is just something that, you know, if they do start talking about it to you, take an interest in it, ask some questions about it perhaps. And importantly, building this trust and respect is showing your child that you accept them, especially in the teenage years as adolescents are starting to really, you know, think about who they are and their identity. It's really important not to shame them. So perhaps they have some behaviors that you don't accept, but you communicate it in a supportive and encouraging way. For example, you know, if they get a new haircut, say your son comes home and he shaved all his hair off and you're horrified, you're like, what have you done? Try and frame it in a constructive way. You know, oh, that's interesting. You know, what made you want to do that? Rather than being like, oh my God, what have you done? That's horrible. Number 5, control your emotions. So regardless of what your teen has done, what they're sharing with you, try to stay calm. So you want to show your teen that they can share information with you without being judged. So the more support you show, the more likely that they'll keep you involved in their life. So if they say or do something that makes you mad, try and again acknowledge it in a constructive way. For example, you know, if they come home late, rather than, you know, barraging them as they walk in the door, getting angry at them, step back, you know, ask them, hey, why are you late? Get what their reason is. Explain to them, I was actually really worried about you because I didn't hear from you. You know, next time, could you please call me if you know that you're going to be late? And then this would be, I guess, another area if you've already sat down before and talked about, you know, well, this is my expectation of you. When you go out on a Saturday night, I expect you to be home at this time. If you don't, you know, this is the consequence. So if you already have something like that in place, this would be really good, where you'd be like, well, you know what happens if you come home late, you lose your phone for a couple of days, you know, whatever it is that you might have in place. So obviously it is really easy for tempers to flare, especially when your teen is being rude or snappy. Remember that you're the adult and you're better able to control your emotions and think logically. So, you know, count to 10, take some deep breaths. Don't say anything in the heat of the moment. And if you are too upset, hit the pause button. It's okay to resume it later. Step away. You know, say, you know, I'm going to go downstairs, or I'm going to leave the room. I'm going to go cook dinner. I'm going to go do something right now. But once we've had the chance to cool down, we're going to pick this up later and we're going to keep talking about this. So let them know that, you know, this isn't finished. We just both need to step away right now before we perhaps say something that we are going to regret later. And this is something that comes down to, you know, when I do the alcohol program, if your teen does come home drunk and you're really angry, it's easier for you to just say, you know, look, I'm not happy that you've done this. There are going to be consequences. Go to bed. Let's talk about this in the morning, rather than both of you butting heads and getting into an argument. Okay, and our final one today is to be a source of knowledge. So this comes down to when you're having those important conversations, you know, whether it is underage drinking, drink driving, taking drugs, having safe sex, be sure to know your stuff and let them know the facts. You know, we've talked about it before. Don't just say you're not allowed to drink. Say, I don't want you to drink, and explain to them why. Let them know what it is that's concerning you and why this is. It's not just because you're being harsh or you're mean. There's a reason why this is, you know, concerned about their harms. Something to consider though is, you know, teens may not care about the same things that you perhaps perceive as important. So with the alcohol, you know, if you sit down and you start talking to your teen about liver damage, long-term, you know, alcohol harms, you know, perhaps dependency on alcohol later in life, this might be stuff that they really don't care about. They might react more or respond better to things such as, well, think about your reputation, you know, or, you know, alcohol does actually damage your looks. So things that might be more on their mind as opposed to yours. And, you know, don't be afraid to share stories with your teen as well. So I do get asked this, you know, well, what if my teen does ask me, oh, okay, well, you drank when you were a teenager, didn't you? You know, if you did, you don't have to lie about it. You can tell the truth. Tell them that you did. Don't glorify it. You know, don't make these amazing stories. Perhaps there's a story that you want to share that has a nice little point to it that you could share with them. But you can say, yeah, you know what? I did drink, but in hindsight, I don't think it was the smartest thing to do. And we really didn't know back then what we know now about the effects of alcohol on teenagers. So it's okay to tell the truth, share some stories with them, just don't glorify it. So I thought while we were here on the source of knowledge, again, I would throw some alcohol stats out there. So perhaps you'll learn something, perhaps you already know it. Let's have a look though. So we're gonna throw a poll back up with Morgan. So what percentage of teens do you think are not drinking alcohol? 45, 50, and this is Australia-wide actually. Okay, so I think we can end it. So we've got 35%, sorry, I was like, which side is that? 35% are saying 45% of teens are not drinking alcohol. So it's actually 70%. So lots of, even if you ask teenagers themselves, they think a lot more of their friends are drinking than what really are. So what I touched on before, you know, less teens are drinking nowadays. There's a whole range of things that, you know, there's not one specific factor that they're attributing this, things such as lifestyle changes. So, you know, how teens spend their leisure time is very different to how, say, we used to spend our leisure time. You know, more time is being spent online. They also have a change, you know, health and fitness is more of a priority for teenagers than it used to be. Policy changes. So a big one here is secondary supply of alcohol. So no longer can anyone give your teen alcohol unless it's you. You know, advertising changes. Some people think perhaps teens are going more towards drugs. They're substituting alcohol for drugs, but really the numbers aren't showing this either. Drug taking is going down as well. So there's a whole range of factors, but yeah, it's actually 72%. And this was last year, 2019, Australia-wide statistic of teens are not drinking alcohol. Okay, so we'll go to the final poll question if Morgan wants to throw that up. So at approximately what age does the brain reach maturity? 18, 21, 25, or 30? Okay, I think we can stop over that. So we have a clear winner here at 25. So it actually is. So our brain is not fully developed until we're around 25 years old. So different parts of the brain develop at different rates. Males typically develop slower than females, but on average it's 25. So what this means is that the teenager's brain is still under construction. So they're still developing and fine-tuning all these systems that relate to decision-making, learning, reasoning, memory, impulse control, planning. So introducing alcohol during this period when we're still, or their brains, teens' brains, are still forming all of these pathways, can wreak havoc on the development of these. There are studies that show teens who drank heavily have actually got smaller prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, so smaller sections of the brain than their peer groups who don't drink or didn't drink. Research yet hasn't determined whether these smaller brains are a consequence of alcohol or an indicator of predisposition towards alcohol consumption. But essentially, you know, this is something that we didn't know all these years ago. Brains are still developing. And I mean, even if you look at the number 25, even when you start drinking at 18, it's still, you know, a bit iffy. But yeah, definitely when teenagers are under 18, it's just doing no good to their brain. So hopefully you can take away something from there to increase some knowledge if you do ever want to sit down and have that alcohol chat with your teens. But that is it for our 6 strategies. So, you know, have quality conversation. The quality of the conversation is really important. And it's really important, you know, if you're struggling to have these more important conversations with your team, to just slowly build this level of open communication. You know, start by just listening, just being there, being available, you know, taking an interest in their lives, just making sure when you do have conversations that they are two-way conversations, you're not lecturing them. An area that, you know, if you do want to sit down and have a chat, and it's really good for opening up conversation between yourself and your teenager, is talking about boundaries and expectations, making it, remember, a negotiation, setting consequences together. Third, being available. So that was really important, just to have times when you can sit back and listen. You don't need to make these times where you sit down and you start plying them with questions to try and get information. You know, sometimes they're going to sit there and they're not going to say anything, and that's okay. It's about, they know I'm going to have this time, and if they really have something on their mind or anything they want to share with you, they know, you know, this is the time that I'll be able to do it. Make sure you're building and fostering trust and respect through your communication as well. Really important to control your emotions. Nothing good, you know, when we were talking about destructive communication, it's definitely when you're doing that, when you're really high on emotions, when you're angry. And be a source of knowledge. You know, make sure that you're someone who your team knows that they can come to. You know, if they have a question or they want to ask you something, you're the person that they can come to, whether it is to get an understanding of something or even just to hear stories from you. Oh, you know, what did you do when, you know, something like this happened to you? How did you handle it? Making sure that they know, okay, my parents is someone who I can come to. So if you do want some more information, we have the Blurred Mind website. You can go to blurredminds.com.au and there's a parent tab. You know, here you'll find some of the information that we talked about, parent-child communication. There's a little bit more there as well. You know, if you do want to set expectations around alcohol, we have a family agreement template that you can download. You'll find some of the latest stats on alcohol and teenagers. At the bottom of the page, you can scroll down and there's a link to play an alcohol trivia game. So it's kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? So you can test your knowledge. You can sit down and do this with your teen if you want as well. So that resource is available for you. And that's it. What time did we wrap up? So thank you for joining. This is when I will shoot to if we have any questions. Did you want me to go through the chat box, Morgan, or was there anyone who specifically had a question that they wanted to ask? One new message. Thank you, Michelle. So I'm trying to see what we've got. How can we? Did anyone have, oh, here we go, messages. Oh. Thank you, everyone. What have we got? How to make your kids more sensitive. I think sensitivity comes down to empathy as well. So sitting down and just having these open communications with them. Can you see any questions in there, Morgan? Okay. What about older teens that are not interested in drinking? Some other examples that are not addressing a possible drinking problem. Yeah, I don't know when these questions were put up and what that means in particular. So, I mean, definitely having communication will be different depending on where your teen is and what your teen's interested in. I'm not sure if you mean like other sensitive topics that you were talking about.
There's one there, Erin, that says, what is the difference between girls and boys in decision making?
I don't know a lot about the difference between the two genders. I know, you know, just if it goes back to actually how the brains work and how males, and like I said before, how they typically develop a bit later than females, and in their decision making and their impulse control and actually their thought process for consequences as well is a bit delayed in development than females. So females may reach that level of maturity and make more rational, I guess, decisions and stop and think about the consequences at an earlier age than boys because of that, because of the development of the brain.
There's another one there, Erin. Is drug taking as detrimental as alcohol?
Yeah, alcohol is actually, because lots of people are less concerned about alcohol, and some parents have even said to me, oh, if my teen's drinking, that's okay, as long as they're not out doing drugs, and they're more concerned about drugs. But actually alcohol is a drug in itself, and it's the one that's causing the most damage in Australia. So it's causing the most harm out of all of the drugs combined. And if you think about what it is, you know, in the hospital visits, it comes down to alcohol fuel violence. A lot of it has to do with drinking alcohol and driving. And then we just have injuries related to, okay, well, when people are drinking and they hurt themselves, so falls. We have injuries and deaths as well related to depression and anxiety and suicide that it causes. So actually alcohol is the number one concern drug in Australia. Yeah, I just knowing their love language, words of affirmation. So yeah, that's good to find out. You know, again, it really comes down to, this is just kind of a really broad overview, but it really comes down to the age of your teenager is really important, and your teen's personality. And those of you who have multiple kids will know this. You know, they may be very different, and one thing that you say to one of your kids, it will just completely maybe go in one ear and out the other, or they'll roll their eyes at you, or they'll be completely not interested. So yeah, we can tell you, you know, this is what you can do here and here, but this is where I think it comes down to also talking with other parents. And this is what I love, you know, we can't do this here in a webinar, but when we have the face-to-face sessions and parents can get together and say, oh, my teen's like that, or this is what I did, sharing these stories with each other, because you guys are the wealth of information yourself. And really it's just down to, you know, finding what works for your particular teenager. So I just see one, do you have any resources for teens about alcohol versus drugs? I believe you're going to get an email tomorrow, and it will have my email in it. So if you want to, then email me that question and I can send you through some resources that I know about. But yeah, you know, I think when they come to you and say, and it's really good that your 15-year-old son has come to you and actually said, you know what, I want to try weed. That's great there that they can even come and say that to you, and they don't just go out and not tell you about it. But I think the really important thing is just letting them know, okay, you know, thank you for telling me. I don't want you to. You know, don't say, no, you're not allowed. No, you can't. I forbid you. Say, I really don't want you to do that. And let them know why. This is where you can do some of your research as well, and sit down with them as well. You know, maybe you want to have a look at these resources first, and then you bring him in and you can both have a look and be like, well, look, this is actually what it does. What do you think about this? Get his opinion on it. And I mean, ultimately, you can't stop him. If he wants to do it, he's going to go out there and he's going to do it. But you can sit down and make sure he knows how you feel about it, and he really knows, okay, well, this is why, this is what's happening.
Erin, we might have time for one more question. So there's one in the chat. What is the role of parents and family members for teenagers to guide the teenagers properly?
Just in general, so general parenting practices, is that what we're talking about? So what was the question, sorry? What is the role of parents to guide teenagers?
Parents and family to guide teenagers.
Yeah, so it's about, you know, really importantly, and this is a strong one, modeling is really important. So it's not just what you say as well, you know, it's how you are, you know, it's how you communicate to your teen. They're picking up on this and they're going to carry that into their life. You know, to do with drinking, it's not just, you know, what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. You know, do you come home and crack open a beer every night? It's like, oh, like your teen sees that. Or every time you go to a party, do you have to take a 6-pack to a barbecue? Is that the way you relax? So modeling is really important. Things like just being active in their life, like monitoring. So not Big Brother, but just, you know, taking an interest in knowing who their friends are, knowing where they're going, who they're going with. You know, having clear, what we've already talked about, clear expectations, making sure that they understand, you know, this is where we stand. This is where we stand as a family. This is what we expect of you. You know, this is what's going to happen. But communication, I think, definitely is strong foundational work that can flow into so many other things. So, you know, there's not an age that you start communication. Obviously, as different types of communication will happen at different age in an adolescent's life, but making sure that you're continually, even if you have to, you know, even if you have got a 16, 17-year-old teenager who refuses to talk to you, won't listen to anything, comes home, slams the door, won't tell you anything about your life, you have to strip it back and go to the bare basics, back to, okay, how can I creep back in? You know, maybe something that you would be doing with, like, you know, not even teenagers yet, building, you know, with small children, just trying to work that level of trust and openness into your life. So creeping in little by little.
Wonderful, thanks, Erin. So we might leave the questions there for now. So if you do have any questions later on, if anything comes to you, or if you would like any more information in this space, please do feel free to contact Erin directly. So her email address, you'll find that in the email that I sent to you earlier today, as well as on Monday in the CC box there. So please feel free to contact her directly. So thank you everyone for attending our webinar today. As I mentioned earlier, you will receive a link to this video recording as well as the presentation slides tomorrow. You'll also receive a link to our evaluation survey. So if you can spare 2 to 3 minutes, the survey really shouldn't take any longer than that. We would really appreciate your feedback. If you are interested in attending any more of our online events, please keep an eye on our website, which is Social Marketing at Griffith. So thank you all very much for joining us today. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.